loves, welcome to Conscious Chats with Jess
and Susie.
where we have mind-expanding chats about this wild ride of life.
We'll be talking about embodiment, self-mastery, health and wellness, spirituality, and everything else between. Thank you for being here, and we hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to this podcast on cycle syncing or menstrual cycle wisdom. In my course, I call it menstrual cycle magic or cycle magic. So this is like the concept of essentially creating a relationship with our cycles, our menstrual cycles, acknowledging that there's different phases of our cycles, and in different phases of our cycles we have different needs, desires, wants, etc., and learning how to listen to that and live in alignment to that.
So funny, so juicy.
Yeah. I know that I've had a really, I don't know what to say. I've had a journey with my relationship to my feminine body, my female body, and my cycle. What about you?
Definitely been a journey for sure. Yeah. And understanding hormones and how stress relates to hormones and lifestyle has a huge impact on our hormones. And yeah, just the challenges of fitting in with what we perceive as expected kind of us in this day to day with a body as a woman.
Yeah. What was your before?
My before. So I always had irregular cycles and much longer than like the average. And I think generally the average might be about 28, but there's more concern when it's over 35 days. And I remember having those cycles for longer than 35 days and kind of being in my premenstrual phase, which is referred to as inner autumn, which we'll get into a little later, but being in that period for like such a long time and having huge PMS symptoms and like feeling bloated and cramping and kind of just like wishing that it would come and get over with, but then hating while it was here. And yes, it was kind of all over the shop, but something that was dreaded. My bleed was something that was dreaded and seen as something that I kind of just wanted to get over and done with. Uncomfortable for the body.
Yeah, I've shared this a few times, but I had an interesting relationship to being a woman. Like when I was younger, when I was probably like 16 to 19, I had this mentality that being a woman kind of sucked, that it would be so much easier to be a man. And I found it like really funny to refer to myself as a man. Like, I don't know, it's a weird time. I wasn't like trying to be a man or wanting to get a sex change or anything. It was just like a silly little immature kind of thing that I like. My gender on Facebook was a boy. Like I had a boyfriend and everything, but it was just like this weird thing. That like me and one of my high school friends, we just had this mentality to being a girl. And I guess like she was maybe more of a tomboy. She had brothers and all of her cousins were boys, and so she kind of grew up in that like in that environment with boys and was like more of a boy, and maybe I thought that was cool or something. So I just like adopted this mentality that being a woman was kind of lame and that like being a boy would be so much easier. And at that stage, this was 17, I had a boyfriend and started having sex, and my mom put me on the pill straight away. And I was on the pill for, I can't quite remember, maybe 5 years. But then straight after the pill, I went straight on Embodiment, which is the barre that you get in the arm. But when I was on the pill, I would constantly skip my period. I thought that was like the best thing ever, that you could skip your period. It was just this inconvenient thing that like, oh, I've got a party this weekend, I'll skip my period. Oh, I'm going away this weekend, I'll skip my period. And then I just did it like all the time. And people would often say it's not very good to skip your period, like it's not good for your body. And I was like, whatever, I don't care. So yeah, same as you, in that I thought it was an inconvenience. I hated the fact that like I had to cycle and bleed, and it was, from what I remember, when I was younger, my period was quite heavy and very painful, especially like cramping, obviously in my tummy, but also pain in my lower back and restless legs. So lots of discomfort. And yeah, like I said, went straight from the pill, the oral contraceptive pill, to Implanon, which is the bar that you get in the arm. And my reasoning for getting that was because I'd heard that you didn't get your period on that. So that's why I went on that. And I remember I was teaching yoga at a retreat in Portugal. This was when I was traveling. And I was just having a conversation with a group of women that were at the retreat center. And one of the ladies was, I think she might have been a nurse, but she was starting to learn more about her body. And I think she had this app or this device or something called Natural Cycles. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I think I've never used it, but I've heard of it. Yeah.
What is it? Do you know?
I thought it was one of the tracking apps. Like,
yeah, okay. So maybe it was
that there is now. Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe it was just a tracking app, but I'd never heard of it. And she'd said how like she was on contraception and then she like decided to stop contraception, and that she was like creating this relationship with her cycle and natural cycles. And it like blew my mind, because at that time, like I said, I was like, periods are fucked, your cycle's fucked, I have Implanon, don't have to worry about it, yay me, this is the best. And so her having this completely different relationship with it, I was just like, what? Like it really did open my mind and expand my mind. And interestingly, at the same time, there was a yoga teacher that was living with me, and she, this is funny because it kind of relates to the same thing. At this period in my life, I was traveling and I was jumping from place to place, going from summer to summer to summer, endless summer, right? And this particular woman, she said that she was going to go to England and have a really delicious, cozy, slow winter. And I was like, what the fuck? Why would you want to have winter? Like summer is so much better. And it's so funny because it's the same thing, right? And we'll get into this a little bit further along in the podcast. But like nature cycles through seasons. One is not better than the other, but at this phase of my life, I thought that summer was better. And I also thought that not bleeding was better. So it's like, it's the same thing. And if that doesn't make sense, we'll expand on it soon. What are you feeling?
Remember when the first time was that I kind of got introduced to cycles. I feel like it was a course online, and I think I just started following this lady called Alicia Rose, and she at the time had a course called Women in Flow, and this may have been in 2017 or 2018, but I'd only ever tried the pill once because I was going away on holidays and I wanted to skip my period for that, like when I was in late teens. And I went on it, and obviously it takes a few cycles to normalize anyway. And once I realized that, I was like going the next week and I was like, oh, this is not worth it anyway. And my mum had always been like not keen on the pill, despite being a nurse and within that medical industry that does sort of think that it's okay and there's nothing wrong with it. But I'd always had these irregular cycles. And so I thought, oh, she was this lady, Alicia, there was just something about this course. And I thought, you know what, I'm going to do it. It was like over a few month container. And I started doing that with her and learning about all the seasons and ways to like move your body, ways to eat to nourish your cycle. And because this was about 3 years after I'd done my yoga teacher training, I guess it's like whenever you do a yoga teacher training and you continue to practice, or whether you just practice as a student, you're developing this relationship and awareness with your body. So I remember on one of our first teacher trainings, it was like, if you do yoga, it's not that you don't have to drink, you don't have to, you know, like go out. They're not things that you're not allowed to do, but if you keep practicing, they're things that will naturally fall away. And I feel like that's one of the things, as you develop this relationship to self, as you develop more awareness to how your body is responding in the different environments and the different ways that you treat yourself, then you become more intentional and in alignment to what is most nourishing, what is most serving for you and those around you. So I feel like being a woman, eventually, if you are on that path of self-awareness, it is something that you, thank goodness, come across, because it is such a game changer.
Yeah.
And it was during this course that I was in a very stressful work environment within a pharmacy, and I've always had stressful pharmacy environments, probably ones trying to teach me and lead me away from them. Anyway, over the years. And I was mid-cycle, and I was kind of used to getting pain while in my premenstrual and while bleeding, but I got it like in the middle, and I thought, oh, this is strange. I started tracking, and I was like, this is weird. And then I thought, oh, maybe it's like appendicitis or something. So I went to the doctor on a Sunday, and she was like, no, nothing's inflamed, but it must be ovulation pain. But never heard of this before. And so luckily I was in this container, and of course we've been going through the fact that uncomfortable periods aren't normal, even though we normalize it. Painful periods aren't normal, even though we normalize it. And of course I was told, without kind of thinking about it, because the doctor had said, oh, that's normal.
Yeah.
Luckily, Alicia was there telling me, no, that's not normal. Like, go back to your regular doctor and go through, just get it investigated. Or I would say to myself back then, if I was telling myself now, go to a naturopath, which I had started actually seeing, funnily enough, in the Gold Coast before I moved to Sydney. But once I was in Sydney, everything kind of like, you know, I didn't have the referral, and I usually see my practitioners based on, other people that have gone. Anyway, so I kind of had known that my hormones were out of balance based on the naturopath that I saw ages ago, but didn't do any proper work on, was just taking different herbal supplements to try to balance it myself. But for me, being in a stressful environment, stress was one of the biggest contributing factors. And we found out that the pain was occurring because I had all these cysts on both my ovaries, and my body was just trying to communicate with me that the environment I was in was not safe. And of course, it's just so funny that we push beyond like our limits, and that it kind of has to get to a point where you're like, your body is screaming at you for you to take any notice. Sometimes to a point where you can't help but stop everything to then change what you're doing. And, you know, I was following this allopathic pathway of waiting for the specialist gynecologist, endocrinologist, and all the while aiming to implement the course of like eating well, but still in the stressful environment. And my partner was like, well, we're going through the possibilities of PCOS and what contributes to it. And he said, well, stress is the biggest thing, because again, like, you're not eating certain things, you know, like we were just looking at what it could be. And when I went to see the specialist, that was, of course, you know, wait months to see and cost like $350. He was like, you're the healthiest person I'll see all day. Like, there's nothing I can do for you. You're like, he was like, you're not the person, you're not here to see me, kind of thing. So dismissed, like didn't tell me anything, but just like, oh, well, yeah, I guess it's stress, and go on your way. So I was looking for like an answer, even though I guess I had the access to the answer. But at that time, I probably was also like, oh, well, I can't quit my job. That's my income. Like, how can I just keep enabling and coping and with this stress, and how can I, like, what, looking for outside answers. Anyway, eventually I stopped that workplace and things got better. And of course, since then, have just had better awareness of how to manage my body, and if there are symptoms, be better at listening to them. And, you know, sometimes if I have had a cycle or a month that's been more on the go, and I haven't rested fully, then my next one, I can feel that my energy is a bit lower, or I'm more scattered, I'm not as clear. So yeah, it's with that understanding and awareness that I get to kind of check in every month. And now I do see the cycle more as a gift, whereas before it was that thing that you were avoiding, thing that you wanted to run away from, and such a hassle to have as a woman.
I forgot that you had PCOS, or, you know, whatever, whether you relate to the diagnosis or whatever, you know, because people can label you as having PCOS, and I don't necessarily fully agree with the label, but I don't know if I knew that, or I forgot, because I have such a similar story to you with that, where you know, when I was on Implanon, I think I was on it for about a year, and I hadn't had a period, and, you know, that was normal on Implanon to not get a bleed. And then I just started randomly bleeding, like not a period, but just like actual just bleeding, just kind of nonstop, but little bits. And I went to the doctor, had a scan and bloods and things, and the scan showed that there was polycystic ovaries, which is when there's multiple follicles that are maturing inside the ovaries. So they call it cysts, but they're not actually cysts. They're just like the normal follicles that are in the ovaries that create your eggs, but they're just not being released. So multiple ones are maturing at once. And I think then I just went traveling and went away and kind of forgot about it. And then when I came back after having that experience with that lady on her natural cycles, I decided to get off Implanon. I got off Implanon in October 2018. And I didn't bleed. I just hadn't had a bleed. Meanwhile, I found the book, The Period Repair Manual by Lara Briden, who's a pretty famous women's health naturopath. And I just was so obsessed with this book. There was like so much science and so much evidence, like evidence-based things in there on, you know, women's health and how our cycles, she says our cycles are like our report card for our body, and if there's anything out with our menstrual cycles, then that means there's something out, or like something that could be optimized or healed within the body. It's like she calls it the fifth vital sign. I don't know how many vital signs there are. It's an extra vital sign that women have. Your period. And then I went and saw a naturopath. I think there was actually many steps in between here. But anyway, I went and saw a naturopath, told her what was going on, and she put me on some herbs. And then in May, after seeing her for, I don't know, a couple months, I got my first bleed. So I went off Implanon in October 2018, and it wasn't until May 2019 that I got my first bleed back, which is normal, again, in like quotation marks, for it to take a while. But also, like, what the fuck was that doing to my body, that like I didn't have a bleed in 6 months or whatever it was, more than that. And then, yeah, same, I like, you know, because I'd read so much about PCOS inside Lara Briden's book, and I'd researched heaps, and like, you have a medical background, so I can understand the science behind things, and I was really interested in understanding it all. And for those of you listening, PCOS is the most common hormonal disorder in young women. But the way that it normally presents, again, in inverted commas, normally, the typical presentation of PCOS is overweight, acne, like diabetic symptoms, as in like high blood sugar, high blood glucose. And obviously Jess and I don't fit that archetype. We're slim, we're very healthy, we eat really well. And so, like the endocrinologist said to you, you know, you're not my patient, you don't fit that bill. so I can't help you. The same kind of happened for me when I saw various doctors over the years, where like they didn't really take any of it seriously because I didn't have the high blood glucose. I didn't have insulin resistance, which is another very common symptom of PCOS. I wasn't overweight. And so it just never made sense. Like it never, ever made sense until I started seeing a naturopath probably last year. And she says that PCOS is a spectrum. So it's not like black or white, yes or no, you have PCOS. There's a spectrum of symptoms, which obviously makes so much fucking sense. And on one end of the spectrum is like, you know, the most severe presentation, which is the one that you're taught in med school of what it looks like, which is the overweight, acne, insulin resistant, diabetic. And then on the other end of the spectrum is like maybe none of those physical symptoms, but irregular periods, irregular cycles. And that was a symptom that I'd had ever since I got my period back in May 2019. And I still do. I still have irregular cycles and my cycles are still long. Anyway, that was another tangent.
I would say mine is still slightly irregular, but they're so much better than what they were. Like I remember like 45-day cycles, and that is just like not okay. Now they're more like around 33, 32, 30, 29. So it's just kind of in that range where I'm like, okay, well, even though it's not clear, then I'm kind of seeing it as that report card or that inventory of what's been going on over the month.
Yeah.
But yeah, I also read, I never finished Lara Bryden's period repair manual, but I loved what I read of it. And as I was going through the supplements and stuff, I was starting to take them. And so, yeah, I love her book as well. And it's definitely one that I recommended to people, which I'd forgotten about. So thank you for the reminder because it's amazing.
Yeah, such a good book, especially, you know, for people that are kind of new to this area, new to, I guess, more natural health, because it is so science-based, it is so evidence-based. For me, it was kind of like a gateway drug into this whole world. So, yeah.
Yeah, and it's wild that because reading up on, I think one of the books that I've read with the history of the oral contraceptive, the combined oral contraceptive pill for women, it was kind of not wanting to be promoted as something that helps with contraception. So they started finding alternative uses like acne, like irregular periods, like painful periods. So now in Western medicine, they see that as a solution. Whereas if you have any of those symptoms, my opinion is now, and I think yours is probably similar, if you have any of those symptoms, you should be, that's already a sign of hormone imbalance. Why would you then put synthetic hormones into your body that are more harmful to your body? What I've seen and also read about, again, is one of the reasons why people don't have a period. It might be 6 months, it might be years until they have a period. Is if people have put on those artificial synthetic, I don't even want to call them hormones, but just drugs, because they're not. Anyway, so soon in their reproductive kind of maturing.
Early reproductive years, yeah,
that your body has to go through all of that when it comes off, and it's going to be much harder when
it's like your body goes through puberty again. I've read
and most women, once they're ready to come off that, want to have a child, like they want to start a family, and how stressful to have to deal with trying to balance your hormones for the first time ever. And I just don't know people in Western medicine, like I don't know what doctors are being taught now, to be honest, about that whole thing, but I still see it, at least when I worked in normal pharmacy, like just obviously so readily available and prescribed. And I don't know what those conversations are that they're having, but I'm just so grateful for the spaces that are talking about cycle thinking and awareness of hormone balancing and what symptoms of imbalance are, and just the space of women owning their feminine energy and like feeling empowered by their hormones and their cycles, because we really need it. Like this is a matter of life or death. If women aren't fertile, there's no life. So important.
I think something that I find important to speak to when we're talking about PCOS is that like the biochemistry of PCOS, as in like what's going on hormonally in PCOS, generally is that there's an elevated level of testosterone in the body. And that's what creates the cycle disturbances. That's what creates the weight gain. You can also get body hair, which is from the testosterone, and acne. No, the weight gain isn't from the testosterone. I think that's from something else.
Cortisol as well.
Cortisol. Yeah. Cortisol. So it's high cortisol, testosterone, and then insulin resistance, right? Is like the kind of chemical things that are going on. And so what's testosterone? Testosterone is a male sex hormone, right? And so if we're looking at like energetics and masculine, feminine energetics, the society that we live in is a hypermasculine society, which I'm pretty sure we've spoken about on this podcast before. As in, you know, society values the go, 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 do, achieve, 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 productivity, blah, blah, blah. And women have way more pressure on them now than I think comparatively in the past. I mean, I can't speak to it, I haven't experienced it, but like women are now expected to contribute financially to the household. Women are now expected to have careers and all of this, the same as men essentially, right? Which is kind of comes out of the feminist movement and like men and women are equal, but it's kind of created this place where women are expected to be more like men. And so then we get an imbalance of masculine and feminine energy within our systems. And that pressure that we place on ourselves to do, achieve, perfectionist tendencies, you know, heading towards burnout, pushing our bodies beyond what feels right, like what you were speaking to when you used to work in those pharmacies, that stress that you were feeling, that pressure that you were feeling, and then pushing yourself anyway, that is that hyper masculine energy, imbalance of masculine energy. Well, then it makes perfect sense that women are now experiencing PCOS, where reflected in their biochemistry is elevated male sex hormones. Like, it's just so fucking, like, it's ridiculous, but it's like makes so much sense, right? Yeah, and so if there's anyone listening that can relate to this and has been diagnosed with PCOS, then I mean, definitely, you know, go and see a naturopath and get the support with supplements and herbs that can support you like physically, tangibly, but then also look at the energetics and start to look into feminine embodiment, lowering that masculine energy. And actually, my partner's cousin, who was also diagnosed with PCOS, she had been on a journey with a naturopath to, you know, like heal it and prepare her body for getting pregnant. And we had this conversation about masculine, feminine energy, PCOS, excess masculine, da, da, da. And I just kind of mentioned it. And she was like, oh, that's so interesting. I feel like most activities that I'm doing are that masculine energy. Like even the hobbies that I have outside of work, you know, she's working normal hours, 9 to 5 or a little bit longer. And then she was like playing touch footy, and I can't remember. There was a couple of other things that she mentioned that she was like, oh, that's all masculine energy, right? And I was like, yeah. She's like, oh, so maybe if I do something like creative, like pottery and like something more arty and like a little bit more rest, I wonder if that would help me. And I was like, yeah, I mean, try it. She's like, okay. You know, it wasn't like a massive thing that she had to change. And then she got pregnant straight away. Just
I was kind of expecting and hoping that that was where you were going.
yeah.
I love that. That's amazing.
Yeah. Mm.
Yeah. And even it's very much the energy as well as just, I guess, take an inventory of where you might be putting more stress on your body or accumulating toxins as well, because a lot of these hormones are processed by the liver, and if the liver is backed up because of what you're putting in your body or what you're putting on your body, then that can also contribute to hormone imbalances as well as the stress, as well as just the activities that you're doing. So it's always interesting to see how it's all connected.
Yeah.
And if you are working with a naturopath and you're doing all the right things in terms of, you know, nutrients and supplements, then it's also interesting to see the energetics and the activity.
Yeah.
Because that's probably something that perhaps the naturopath doesn't cover as much.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's right. There's like estrogen, like excess
Dominance.
estrogen in the body, estrogen dominance, which the liver breaks down estrogen, and then you can get excess estrogen in the body, which there's like yang and yin hormones, and estrogen's more of the yang, the masculine, fiery energy, and progesterone is the yin. So they're meant to be in balance throughout different times throughout the cycle. But if we're not receiving that progesterone, or if there's too much estrogen, then that's still excess yang or fire or masculine or productive energy, which we want to balance and harmonize. Should we talk about cycle syncing?
Yes.
This is such a juicy topic. There's just so much to say.
Yeah. Yeah, so I guess with the biggest thing that really shifted for me with the cycle awareness was kind of mapping the cycle like the seasons. And we think this comes from the traditional Chinese medicine component. But your bleed is your winter time, then your follicular phase is your springtime, your ovulation is your summer. And that's where Susie was mentioning before that she loves summer and always wanted summer. That's that superwoman energy. And then your luteal phase is your inner autumn. So yeah, they're generally referred to as inner winter, inner spring, inner summer, inner autumn, as in the cycles that your body is experiencing from the inside out. And for me, this made so much sense. And I think for most women, it makes so much sense because you're like, oh, yes, I see how that is apparent in nature. I know the qualities and the energies of each season. And then how can I work to that and play with that and nourish that within my body? And even when I started, I would like love the spring, summer, not really the autumn and winter. And so then it was a process of, okay, like what are the gifts of each season that I get to receive, and where's like the magic, and that in itself, there's the understanding and knowing, but then the embodiment piece as well that comes after. And it's just been a continuous thing that each month we get to kind of like reassess and re-experience and relive. And yeah, it's just totally shifted my whole relationship to not only my cycle, but then also my body, because within each season, there's something to receive there.
Yeah. And, you know, something that's coming up for me right now, I feel like the most gentle introduction to this wisdom is literally to spend more time in nature and to notice the changing of the seasons in Mother Nature, in the earth, in something that's so present, available, tangible. And you can see what happens. You can see the changes. You can see the changes in the trees, obviously, in the temperature, the changes in like how many animals around, whether the flowers are blooming, whether the leaves are falling. And like having an appreciation for all of those seasons, all of those cycles, and seeing if you can, like experience gratitude for each of them instead of labeling one as good or bad or right or wrong, which is like when you look at nature, it's like ridiculous, right? It's like, that's the way it is. How could it be right or wrong, good or bad? And again, like funny little tangent. I remember it was probably a similar time when I was obsessed with summer. I used to hate it when it rained. Like it used to make me really depressed when it rained. And now I'm like, I love the rain. The rain is so nourishing. And then it makes the sunshine even more beautiful. Like all of the phases, all of the representations of nature are beautiful, perfect, exactly how they're meant to be. And the same is true for our bodies and our cycles. And yeah, I think it is probably like the general consensus across all women when they start to learn this cycle wisdom is like spring and summer are like so much better. You have so much more energy. You can do all the things. And then autumn and winter kind of suck. But yeah, I don't feel that way anymore. And I think that's what you said as well. It's like learning to love each of the phases for what they are. And again, in nature, like I used to hate winter and now I love winter. It's just cozy. You get to sleep in more. And I give myself permission to sleep in more, to hibernate, to literally hibernate, to get up later, to stay in bed longer and be cozy and like leave the house less. And it's like, yeah, like living cyclically, living with nature.
As we are meant to, as we're part of nature.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That is also the same for me. I hate the cold. I hate it when it rained. I didn't like winter. And I'm not sure if that is like a Australian thing or like a Gold Coast thing. I'm just not sure.
Yeah.
But definitely like moving down to Sydney as well. It's been something that, yeah, over the years have learned to appreciate and okay, how can I get comfortable with this and like enjoy the deliciousness of being cozy and having teas and getting beanies and socks and scarves and more cuddles and yeah, more inward time as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And there's not only this, oh sorry, go.
There you go. I'm gonna change tangents.
I want to hear the tangent.
Well, did you want to finish your thought though?
No, I was a different tangent too.
What was my tangent now? What were we just talking about?
Loving up on winter and just like the seasons.
Oh, I was gonna say, yeah, I was gonna share some benefits that I've noticed since cycle syncing. So since learning to live in alignment with my cycle, listening to my body, understanding the energetics of each of the 4 phases, which we'll go into, but different types of foods or different ways of preparing your food support you better in each season, different activities, like moving at different speeds, different levels of socialization, etc., which we'll go into. Anyway, like I shared, my bleed in the past was very heavy, very painful, cramps in my belly, sore lower back, restless legs. And that was true even after coming off Implanon and seeing the naturopath and regaining my cycle. That was still the case up until really recently, where I shared this in an email a couple months ago. I send a weekly newsletter on Friday with my lesson of the week and lots of different freebies. But I shared I feel like I found the secret keys to the universe. And the secret keys to the universe is to rest during your autumn phase, to really, really slow the fuck down, say no, set boundaries, clear your calendar and rest, like deeply rest in autumn. Whereas everything I'd learned, like with cycle syncing, was always telling you to rest in winter. But what I've found is like resting in autumn has allowed the pain to go away. Like I don't experience pain anymore on my bleed. Like I feel like that is fucking revolutionary to have cramps my whole cycling life until I started resting in autumn, and then to have no cramps. Like that's fucking insane, right?
It is. And it's like, what are the cramps? Why are they there? What's their purpose? Telling you to stop.
Exactly. And that like dropped in so clearly one bleed, because one bleed I was able to rest in my inner autumn and I had no cramps. And then the next bleed, I was putting heaps of pressure on myself. I was really stressed and worried about money. I was in my inner autumn and I was like, go, 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 do. When my period comes in, I'll rest. When my period comes in, I'll rest. I don't have time to rest. I don't have time to rest. Period came and it was the most pain I have ever been in my life. And I could literally do nothing other than lie there in pain. like nothing. I even tried to go for a walk around our complex with my partner because sometimes walking helps the pain, and I nearly passed out. I had to sit down. And that dropped in so clearly in that moment. My body was like, fucking rest, bitch. And the only thing that would have made me stop was the intense pain. And so then the next cycle, I was like, you are resting in inner autumn, no matter what is happening. And I did. I rested in that luteal phase, the premenstrual phase, the phase before my bleed. And again, no pain.
You're like, it's that simple.
That's simple.
It's like, it's crazy that, you know, how long have we been on this earth? 30 years. And like for half of that time, around about, it's like we've been having these cycles. Yeah. And why isn't this information readily available? Like I remember when my cycle used to be so long, because I'd always be going. That's kind of like what I expected of myself. That's what I thought other people expected me. And it would be like when I taught a yin class and it was like on day 40 and then I get my period like during yin or after yin. And I'm like, oh, like my body had to feel. It's interesting. It's like also when you go and then you go on holidays and you get sick because it's like you have been so run down, but the body looks after you. Like this is our chance to, what I also like about cycle awareness is this is our chance to pay more attention and look after our body that has done so much and continues to do so much to look after us. And while I'm on the go, whether, you know, at least guys can also relate to that getting sick, you know, but for women as well.
Yeah.
When you're on the go and you stop, that's when your body's, oh, finally, like now everything that I've been putting off, now that they've stopped, it's safe for said body to rest, to recover, to stop. And so there is this kind of like, thank goodness the body looks after us, but also we need to, well, we don't need to do anything, but this is what you can do to make it more of that living in harmony and cyclical nature and more in reverence to our way of being, our way of life, the way the world works. Like, but it's just this trying to fit the mold that we've created of what is normal, which is actually just dysfunctional.
Yeah. Yeah. Wild. Yeah, one of my one-on-one clients who I've been working with for a long time, you know, she's obviously learned cycle wisdom since working with me. And the same thing happened to her after I shared with her about resting in her inner autumn phase. Next bleed, no pain. I can literally like, this is the fucking secret keys to the universe. Like everyone needs to know this.
I love it. So important.
Oh, yeah. Should we share a little bit about the phases and things that are the most supportive in each phase?
Yes. And also the other tangent that I was just going to bring up, what I also liked, to me, the cycle awareness, not only was it the seasons, but also the archetypes that are layered over the seasons. And so this was my first kind of introduction to archetypal work, which I also really enjoyed because as you know, Susie, but also listeners may know, Susie has a full spectrum woman course in which you get to also look at the different archetypes. But as humans, let alone as women, there's all these different aspects of ourselves and states of being that we get to experience. And yeah, through the cycle awareness and these archetypal natures, that was the first time where I got to be introduced to it and play with it and practice that. So just to briefly go over it, when you're in your inner winter, it's like the crone archetype. When you're in your inner spring, it's the maiden. When you're in your ovulation, it's the mother. And then when you're in your inner autumn, it's the wild woman. And so, yeah, these are all different aspects of us that some of us get to fully embody. Well, we all fully embody, but we get to do it every cycle as well. And there's just again, so much magic in that. And then as you'll hear, like the different benefits or the superpowers or the gifts that each archetype and season have.
Yeah, and so those four archetypes are all within the feminine. They're all archetypes of the feminine, but they're different pieces and parts of the feminine. And so at different times of our cycle, each one of those archetypes are more present, which yeah, we'll go into now as we go into the different phases. Where should we start? Which season?
Winter.
Sure. Okay.
Yeah.
So winter is obviously our bleed time, and you can relate to winter, like seasonal winter, earth winter, as the time to hibernate. And sometimes we like to say we go into our womb cave when we're in a winter, and so it's really the time to rest as much as you can. Obviously, people have different jobs, people have different activities in life. And so even if you can't physically rest, even if you can't physically spend a day in bed or on the couch, can you go about your day with a slower pace? So this even looks like walking around your house more slowly, like driving more slowly, right? How many times do we get in the car and we're like banging it to get somewhere because we're like 5 minutes late? Like, no, don't do that on your bleed. On your bleed, purposely leave 5 minutes early so that you can drive like driving Miss Daisy and you're not taking yourself into a fight or flight response. Funny side tangent. One time when I was on my bleed, one of those bleeds that I didn't have pain, I had to go and meet someone and I was late. And so I was stressed driving fast and I started to get cramps. And then I told myself to chill the fuck out. It's not that important. Don't worry. And the cramps went away. So just to give you like a tangible or physical example of that point. Yeah, so move slowly, breathe deeply, like be gentle on yourself as much as you can. Stop all activities as much as you can, as much as is possible in your life. Like warm, comfy, cozy clothes, not like tight, skinny jeans or G-strings. Warm, nourishing foods are best, like easily digestible things, using the principles of Chinese medicine, like not eating anything that's cold or raw, cooked, easily digestible foods, soups and stews, obviously depending on the season that you're in the earth. Like if you're bleeding during summer, then you can have some things that are more cold. But like if you're bleeding during winter, then like, no, don't eat raw salads or raw foods on your bleed. And exercise is like the lightest form of exercise, like slow, gentle walks, yin yoga. The least amount of socializing as possible, like it's an internal time. And yeah, when Jess talks about the archetypes in a winter being the crone, which is the wise woman, that's because when we're in our bleed, we're actually the most connected to source, spirit, God, the divine. And so when you fully allow yourself to rest during your bleed, you can actually receive really beautiful, important, intuitive downloads about life. Because you're the most connected to spirit, and you can have like really like enlightening experiences. So I really love to meditate when I'm on my bleed, and like the meditations are just wild because you're the most connected to that. Because it's also like if we're looking at the death rebirth cycle, in a winter is the death. So it's like the void between the two worlds. What would you add for winter?
Yeah, it's one of the times that the woman of the cervix of the woman opens, so the veil between spirit and earth is like the thinnest, which is partly why you are more likely to get downloads. And back in the day when they used to kind of live in tribes, there would be, we've all probably experienced, we sync up with the women, whether we're working with them or in family and things like that. So it used to be a time where all the women would go and bleed in the red tent, and they would come back to the tribe and pass their wisdom or whatever they'd kind of heard to the men, and maybe they would go a different path or, you know, but it was seen as something that was just a great time for, it was a sacred time. And something else coming through. Also, because men don't get this experience, a little bit of a tangent, men like don't get this cycle, they don't get this time to go inwards as much. So they created sweat lodges to be able to experience the same types of experiences that women just naturally get to experience through this amazing vessel that we have. So this is just like how potent this time is, and what I've come to learn about how magical it is. And it was something that, you know, actually other people, even men, wanted to experience and had to create other types of journeys to allow for that environment.
That's so interesting. I didn't know that relationship between sweat lodges and bleed. Yeah, I have done one only, but it was beautiful.
Yeah. And I don't know about you, but whenever I'm on my bleed, like my whole body does get hot. My hormones, I can really feel it. And like my partner can't even really, like, he's like, you're too hot. I can't like come close to you. I can't hug you. You're just sweating. But yeah, it's amazing how powerful hormones are to be able to create life, and then let alone create all these changes within the body.
Something else I want to add to inner winter is like, this is really your time to receive and ask for help. So, you know, something that I really speak to a lot and teach in my program is asking for what you want from your man and requesting in really powerful, beautiful ways that are inspiring, not frustrating for your man, because there's a big difference. But really learning to ask for what you need, ask for support, ask for him to cook dinner, ask for him to pick the kids up, ask for him to do the things. And I know that you and your partner have a really beautiful experience or relationship with this. And what does he call himself? The keeper of your womb or something?
I love that. One of my teachers had said that her partner was like the protector of the bleed. And so I've kind of like asked him, hey, could you be, as I was learning about all this and ways that I could better nourish myself, I was like, hey, and he, I guess, kind of rose to that occasion and that offering. And you know, it's beautiful when also your partner can hold that protector role, you know, as the hunter and the one who just helps to create the space for you.
Yeah.
And if you're not in relationship, I would also then kind of just invite your inner masculine to be perhaps pre-preparing food, or like ordering, you know, or again asking for help from others. So ways that you can create that boundary in that space for yourself.
100%. Yeah. I used to do that before living with my partner, pre-preparing food when I was in inner autumn, and like making what are they called, like slow cooker meals. Yeah, which is so easy, by the way. Slow cooker meals is so easy and exactly the food that is perfect for you while bleeding. You just need time.
So yummy.
All right. Is that winter?
Sorry, I think I lost you a little bit there.
Is that winter? Shall we move to spring?
Yeah.
Did you want to do spring, and then I can add?
Amazing. So spring is a time where our energy begins to pick up and our hormones start to build again. And I use kind of the invitation is that you slowly reemerge from the cave, like you would see the seasons slowly come to life. And I've typically used my springtime in business as a time to birth and create ideas or plan. Sorry, my love, I think I lost you there.
That's all right.
Hopefully this connection is a little bit better.
You just said you use your springtime to plan.
Yes. So this part of my cycle, I was using it to plan the month ahead and kind of initiate ideas or launches, or kind of like what it is that I was birthing next, what it is that my goals were, or yeah, whether it was just for that cycle or potentially what I was coming back to and maybe tweaking ways that I was moving towards those desires. This is where we might start to say yes to more things. And again, with that awareness of not going too hard, too fast, too soon, because then we over deplete ourselves. Yeah, I think that's about it. My spring for me is really about, yeah, those germination of ideas and planning.
Yeah, beautiful. The archetype of spring is the maiden. So it's like more of that playful energy, curious energy, like trying new things. If there's something that you've been wanting to try that's like new or different, they say that this is the best time to do that. Yeah, and I really love what you said about coming out of the cave slowly and really being mindful around not like putting all the things back on your plate all at once, just like slowly easing back into it. And so then the same is true for the food and the exercise and the socializing and everything. Is like not doing it all at once, but like starting to ramp up slowly. So, you know, if you've been resting and going for really short, slow walks and doing yin yoga in winter, then in spring don't go and like run a marathon. Like slowly start to, you know, go on faster walks or do vinyasa yoga, but maybe don't like kill yourself at the gym with resistance training, for example. And then, you know, this is all a guide, so don't get perfectionisty about any of it, because that's a journey that I went on when I first learned about all these things. But you know, if there's like things here and there that pop up, it's okay. We just be compassionate and gentle with ourselves. But so yeah, if you know, if you weren't socializing in winter, then in spring, don't like do 50 things, maybe like, you know, do 3, that kind of thing.
Yeah, and they're not hard rules to kind of make you feel bad or get stressed over. Like if you do have a lot of responsibility in your inner winter, that's where it's not like saying like, well, I can't do any of it and everything has to shut down. It's like, okay, well, how can I manage that? How can I adapt to it?
Yeah. How can I approach it with that slow, gentle, soft energy, even if I still have to do the things? Can I do them more slowly? Can I just like approach them from a relaxed energy instead of a stressy pressure energy? Yeah. And so then with foods and in a spring, same thing. Like you can start to eat a little bit more raw food, like salads and things like that. But ideally, full on raw foods would be for summer, in a summer.
So the inner summer is when you have, it's like your peak, it's that superwoman energy. It's where I would say, where I was always trying to be, like for the whole cycle, which is not realistic if we really look at your hormones and how they naturally cycle. And it's where you feel most vibrant, most nourished. It's your most fertile time. It's when you're ovulating. So it's when you're most magnetic, able to go out there and things are easy and it doesn't take a lot of effort. There's like this abundance of energy and love and yeah, this really nurturing energy. And this is where you might have those lighter foods, more fruits, more veggies, less kind of grounding root cooked, heavier, heartier meals. And that's where you would go to the HIIT class. So you would be maybe having those early mornings and later nights and as a guide, still listening to your body and noticing, I guess, okay, yeah, if you are needing that little sleeping in the morning, like it's not like, oh, I'm in my inner summer, I gotta get up and go. It's like, okay, well, yeah, let's listen and have this as a added layer of awareness and almost like a relationship building tool to self.
Yeah, and I just wanted to paint a little picture of what's actually going on in the body too in the different phases. So in spring, which is called the follicular phase scientifically, that's when one follicle is chosen from the ovaries to grow and mature. The follicle is the name of one little ovum or egg inside its little house. The house is called the follicle. So it's called the follicular phase because one follicle is growing and maturing. And then ovulation is when that one follicle that was chosen to mature gets released out of the ovary into the uterus for fertilization and implantation if you get pregnant. Just for a little visual. What else do I want to say about summer? Yeah, it's a time where you can like do all the things. The archetype is the mother, which I always found a little bit confusing, but the relationship to that is like the mother energy is that energy that's like doing everything for everyone. So summer is when you're able to do that, when you're able to step into that role of like, you know, helping all the people around you and giving that nurturing energy and nourishing energy outwardly. Whereas on the flip side, and in a winter, we want to be giving all of that nurturing, nourishing energy to ourselves. So that's that mother archetype that's going on in summer. I think I'm complete with summer.
Yeah, that mother. I see the mother archetype as that abundance and that nourisher, and the one. Yeah, so I guess if you don't have kids and everything, it can be like, oh, how do I connect to that? But it's almost like the abundance of Mother Earth, how she's always giving and how the soil is always rich. And yeah, that's
yeah, beautiful. Beautiful.
And the superwoman energy as well. Like you can really feel that. It's so tangible and like it is where we always kind of push ourselves.
Well, yeah, and this is the phase, as you say, when we're the most magnetic and like you can literally look more attractive, and also you're generally the most horny and like you have the most libido in ovulation. And my partner now is like, I can like literally tell when you're ovulating. It's so obvious to me now, which is fun.
My partner's like that as well. He's like, in the summer.
So good.
It's fun when you get to do the journey with, whether it's your partner or friends.
Yeah. Then in autumn is the premenstrual, because it's before your bleed, also known as the luteal phase. And what's going on in the body is that follicle that was chosen to mature has released its egg. The ovum has been released out of the ovary, but the follicle, the house that it was living in, then starts to transform into what is called the corpus luteum, which is why it's called the luteal phase. And so this is like, you know, spring is your energy is building up until a peak in summer, and then autumn is when it's starting to decline to a trough in winter. So autumn, and there's like, autumn is the longest phase that we have, and you can kind of split it into two phases, like early autumn and late autumn. So what one of my friends who speaks a lot about this says is like early autumn is when you want to complete all your tasks. If there's like things that have been going on in the month, like Jess mentioned, in spring is your planning phase. Autumn is kind of like your completion phase so that you can have all the tasks complete for winter. So early autumn, you can still be moving like, you know, a decent amount, have like a decent amount of activities, but this is when you're going to start setting the boundaries, start clearing the calendar. Ideally, your calendar would already be like winding down because you would have like already planned in advance. But yeah, in autumn is when you're starting to say no to things. You're creating that beautiful container for your bleed. And then food-wise, this is when your body actually craves the most amount of carbs. So like pizzas, pastas, breads are good to eat in this phase. And I think it's the phase that you're the most hungry and that you need the most food. So it's okay to be eating a lot of food in this phase. That's actually what your body wants. Inner autumn gets a bit of a bad rap. This is like the PMS symptoms phase, but PMS symptoms are literally, so the archetype of inner autumn is the wild woman. And so PMS symptoms are literally just your inner wild woman being like, fuck you, fuck everyone. This is the time for me. This is the time for boundaries. I'm sick of everyone's shit. I'm sick of people pleasing. I'm sick of putting everyone else before myself. And so you become a moody bitch. but that's literally just your wild woman being the protector of your bleed. And so if you are aware of that, and if you start creating the boundaries for yourself and resting and slowing down and saying no and no longer people pleasing in inner autumn, you will not be a moody, crazy bitch. Anything you want to add?
The wild woman, yes, bad rap for sure when I first learned about her, and it was like, oh well, I don't want her to come out, but no, it's just part of you. It's time for editing. So like she's there to start to be like, this is okay, this is not okay, I'm no longer taking this into the next cycle. And if I don't, like, because you're preparing for your winter, that she wants to deal with it now. And it's not something to be feared. It's not something to, suppress. It's like, okay, she's kind of maybe speaking up or expressing, how can I serve her? And where is she telling me that that's enough? And the other thing I just wanted to add to the autumn was, what was that? I feel like there was something. Yes, so it's also the time where your inner critic can be the loudest. And that is just an invitation to be more gentle with yourself as well, I find. Knowing in those moments where I had more doubt or more like negative judgments or thoughts towards myself, I was like, okay, I'm in my autumn. It's just a sign that I'm, becoming more fragile, and this is where I just get to love myself even more through it, and not take those thoughts more seriously, or not give them any weight.
Yeah, beautiful. To add on to what you were saying about inner autumn being the editing phase, one of the books that I read describes it as inner summer is like you're wearing rose-colored glasses. You see the world through rose-colored glasses. Everything is fine and dandy. Everything is amazing and perfect. You can say yes to all the things. You can support everyone else all you want, which is kind of like, the people pleaser is kind of like the shadow aspect of that. But in inner summer, you can actually do a lot for other people. In inner autumn, the rose-colored glasses come off and you see things maybe as they truly are, or you see things in a different way. And so that's when it's like, okay, now this stops. Now this like doing everything for everyone else stops. Now is the time for me. And then, it's like that editing phase, like what's not working. And sometimes this can come up in relationships. This is something that happened in my relationship for a long time, is in inner autumn, there would always be things like something would come up in my relationship and would go through like a little bit of I guess there would just be things accumulating throughout the month that I wasn't speaking to. And then in inner autumn, it all comes to like a big fucking like, look at this shit kind of energy, like that editing wild woman, like, bitch, look at this, express this. And so now this doesn't really happen anymore because I'm really good at expressing like in the moment. And so there's not like this build up and then this release and then a bit of like icky time for us in inner autumn, because I'm expressing all the things as I go throughout the month. But that can be something that happens when you're learning how to do that, is that it comes out in inner autumn when the wild woman's like, well, if you're not going to tell him the rest of the month, I'm going to tell him now.
And it's interesting how, like, if that's not dealt with, then it's just going to keep coming back.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. And then that's when like the PMS moody bitch symptoms are going to like get real bad.
yeah.
Yeah. So beautiful.
Yeah.
I wanted to say. I think that's it for now. There's so much there. There's so much there. So just being gentle with yourself, if this is the first time that you're ever hearing about any of this. You can listen to this like a million times again. And you can even like pick one phase to focus on. Like I used to enjoy learning about this stuff in my inner winter, and like creating the sacred time for myself to rest and slow down in winter. And then that's when I would like read the books about these topics. And it was like this little ritual for myself. So that could be something that you do.
Mm.
The books that I would recommend are Wild Power, Woman Code, and The Period Repair Matter.
Mm.
Really, really potent, amazing books.
Yeah.
Ah.
I haven't read those first two, so I want to see those two as well.
Yeah, they're great.
But there's so much magic in your cycle, and I do see it as part of just learning to love yourself and learning to get to know yourself better, and yeah, just appreciate all the different gifts that are in the seasons and all the different gifts that each archetype has, knowing that all these different energies are alive within you, and each one gets to have the stage at a point, and you get to explore and play. And yeah, it doesn't have to be a big heavy thing or something that you avoid and dread, where you actually swing through the loving your cycle, loving life, and then hating on it. It gets to be really nourishing and harmonious the whole way through, which is life-changing.
Yes. Yeah. It's actually so beautiful. One of my friends and then another person as well, one of my clients, they both, when they started to learn about their cycle, they said it actually helped them so much. So my client, she said that it helped her. She had always really struggled with communicating with her partner, communicating how she was feeling, communicating like what she needed, etc. And when she learned about the cycle, she was like, it was such a beautiful way for me to communicate what was going on within me from this framework. And I guess it's like almost maybe slightly less vulnerable, because it's like, this is the framework. This is what happens in women's bodies. I'm in this phase, so I need this. And so that was easier for her to communicate with her partner. And it was like a gateway drug. I love saying that, a gateway drug into starting to communicate and express and share what was alive and real for her. And then similar with one of my friends, she said that learning about the cycles was a really beautiful way for her to start to listen to her body and set boundaries, because she was like, so like, she's the best at boundaries. Like every time she's bleeding, she's like, no, 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 no. And like literally everyone in her friendship group is like, okay, Steph's bleeding, she's out. And it's like a known fact. It's a hard boundary. Whereas in the past, you know, she kind of, yeah, she said that learning about this was a way to start to settle into her boundaries, which is really cool. Again, it's like, it's almost like this framework, and it kind of makes it like less scary or less vulnerable or something, because it's like, this is something that's real and tangible that happens in all women, and I'm in this phase. So therefore I can say no to this social thing that I don't actually want to go to. Yeah.
And I think you said before, like the feminist movement is like women being equal to men. Like my approach would more be like having more reverence for the cycles.
Yeah.
If we were to fully put men and women on this spectrum of equal, it's not about women up leveling to the same standard as men. It's like, no, having the space for women to be in their bodies, having the reverence both as women for ourselves, but as men as well, getting to be the protector, the womb keeper. I love that you said that as well, like that we're working together, because like this again, I think it's like a very important thing of life and death. And we want the world to be more vibrant, more fertile, more in harmony, and just in flow with our rhythms and nature's rhythms. And the more we can find this harmony within ourselves and understand it. And like, I love how just it makes sense. Like you talk about the seasons, you get it. It's not a huge scientific thing that you need to break down and like spend hours studying. Like it's something that you, okay, especially as women, that you get to embody it through learning about it through each cycle. I love that as well. That's how I learned as well, because every day you're in some part of your cycle. It's like, okay, where am I at now? What is going on for me? Asking myself questions of how much energy do I have? How well did I sleep? All those sorts of things, like just noticing where you're at in your cycle. And yeah, I feel like I've lost my train of thought there, but there's just so much power and reclaiming and it's important. Yeah. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for listening or watching. This was a long one. There was a lot to speak to and cover. And obviously we could talk about this for hours, as you can see. If you have any requests for podcast topics, please send us a DM on Instagram. If you loved this episode, let us know in the comments or whatever you're listening to it on. And yeah, if you're interested in taking any of this work deeper, there were those books that I recommended. I teach on this inside my program, The Fully Expressed Woman. And there's lots of women also that specialize in this wisdom and this knowledge, and they have all different courses and variations of education.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Susie. Thank you so much, listeners, for being here.
Thank you.
The best with unlocking the secrets and the wisdom of your cycle.
We love you.
Much love. Bye.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of Conscious Chats. We are so grateful that you're here.
We'd love to stay connected. You can find me on Instagram at sanctuaryonline.co. I offer an online classes of yoga, Pilates, barre and yin, on demand and live, and I would love to practice with you.
And I'm on Instagram at Sacred with Susie. Susie is spelled S-U-S-I-E. And I have a variety of offerings on feminine embodiment, emotional mastery, and more, including my signature program, The Fully Expressed Woman. Feel free to send either of us a message on Instagram if there's any conscious chats you want to hear us riff on. Otherwise, have a beautiful day. We love you. Bye.